Having made my way south from the gardens of the northwest coast on down to Glasgow, my next stop had intended to be Edinburgh. But I've had a slight change of plan, and I'm heading back up north because when I knew I was coming here to Scotland to film, I wanted to visit one of the royal gardens and made application, and there was lots of discussion. But now I've got the green light. And I'm going to visit Birkhall, just outside Ballater, which I know is the King and Queen's favourite and very private garden. Birkhall sits in wooded hills above the River Muck and was bought by Prince Albert in 1849 as a neighbouring estate to Balmoral. The garden is entered through a door in a ling-thatched wall that links the house to the gazebo, built by King Charles as a memorial to his grandmother, whose Scottish home it was for many years. The back of the house is surprisingly informal. You have alchemillus and the thyme growing out of the gravel. But there isn't a lot of colour at this point in the year because the whole garden, and especially the salvia bed in front of the house, is geared towards its maximum display in the month of August, when the royal family are here. But nevertheless, you have the honeysuckles spilling over the steps and climbing up the walls, and there is real charm. And for all its informality and lightness of touch, it is beautifully looked after. The garden, largely created by the late Queen Mother, is on a hillside, in the space between the house and the river. I'm making my way down from the lawn outside the house, down a steep slope through a series of terraces. Here you have a seat which commemorates the Queen's 60th birthday, the big C for Camilla in the middle. And there are yews planted around it, which are now growing up into some kind of maturity, as part of the seat. And I love the way that the red flowers, these bright scarlet flowers of the tropylium, is dripping and falling through the yew foliage. Everywhere that you go, there are stories and bits of history attached even to individual trees. In the 1850s, Queen Victoria, who'd been here for about 10 years, sat with Florence Nightingale underneath this tree, this lime tree, discussing the need for a proper nursing service as a result of Florence Nightingale's experiences in the Crimean War. Near the now huge lime tree is a small thatched Wendy house, built in the 1930s for the late Queen and her sister, Princess Margaret, and apparently still much used and loved by all the royal children. At the bottom of the steep slope below the house is the Belgar. This is a flat area, which was originally laid out at the end of the 19th century, but since the king took over at the beginning of this century, he's made many changes. He's added lots of hedges and topiary to give it winter structure, and also, and I know this is really central to him, it is run on completely organic and sustainable lines. It produces a lot of food for the house, broken into small beds, and also has lots of flowers, particularly chosen to attract pollinators and predators, so like the sedum hedges, which in late summer and early autumn, which is when the king is here, will attract clouds of butterflies and bees. A recently restored wire bridge over the tumbling waters of the Muck takes me to the garden's newest addition. Across the other side of the river, there is a 2-acre area, which 10 years ago was an empty patch of ground. But to commemorate and celebrate the birth of Prince George, an arboretum was planted here. And in the 10 years, it has really become quite substantial with largish trees, lots of shrubs, many of which are apparently planted by the king himself. And I'm told that this is now the king's favorite part of the garden. My overriding response to this garden is not just that it's a grand garden, beautifully looked after by a really good team, but that this is personal. For the king and the queen, this is their Scottish home. They care about every aspect of it and are clearly involved in almost every plant combination. What's done, how it's done, when it's done, and that is what brings it alive. Having made this royal detour, I'm now returning to my route and heading to Edinburgh.